It's 6 p.m. and I want to call to order the April 8th, 2025 monthly Board of Directors meeting, business meeting for the South Broward Water and Sewer Authority. I want to welcome everyone here, and I hope those that want to speak have signed up, turned their card in. And Madam Secretary, you give us a roll call. We're going to be one short tonight.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Gooch.
Present.
Commissioner Karen is not with us this evening. Commissioner Kaczynski.
Present.
Commissioner Way.
Present.
Councilperson Daniels.
Present.
Councilperson Cheek.
Present.
Commissioner McLam.
Present.
All are accounted for.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And now, Commissioner Way, will you lead us in our invocation?
Yes. Let's pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening. Your many graces. We ask that you be with us as we discuss matters of our community. Be with those that are also in our community that need your uplifting hand. We ask you to help us make great decisions that affect our family, friends, and our neighbors. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And Vice Chair Kaczynski, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Has everyone had a chance to look over our meeting agenda? Is there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing no adjustments to the agenda, I call for a vote to approve the agenda.
Motion.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Then we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Review of the minutes. Everyone's had a chance to review the minutes of last month's meeting. If you've had a chance to,
Motion to approve.
motion to approve, okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. The ayes have it. Motion carries. And now we're down to public comments and, okay. Mr. Ed Gleason, would you like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Ed Gleason. I live at 1973 Bowles Avenue, Creedmoor, North Carolina. Very happy there. What I want to speak about tonight is I'm looking forward with great anticipation to the PFAS report. And I hope that that's going to shed some light on things that will hopefully make us a little more understanding of what's going on and how it's moving. My only concern is that the money that needs to be raised is certainly being raised. We have officials from the state that are working with us to try to get us more money. There are people on this board that are also working with those public officials from New York, I almost said Albany, from Raleigh. And
We'll take money from Albany anyway.
I will continue to do that. Mike, here's a concern that I have. We're working at a number that was given to the country and to us by, and that had values in it that to all of us at one particular time thought, man, that was really low. In fact, it was so low that there was a hard time for people to even be able to test for it. Well, now there's plenty of ways to test for it, so we can't argue that anymore. My concern is that things are changing I mean, things are changing so fast that, I mean, I can't even keep track of my 401k from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't want to see what's happening with other agencies and other parts of our government where laws that were created to protect the citizens of this country, to protect our parks, to protect all of the things that we care about in our country. If the government decides to buy an addict, I mean that by just a stroke of a pen as an executive order, and they say, well, PFAS doesn't need to be 0.004 per trillion, it needs to be only now 8%. Those figures weren't established by the government, they were established by people that work and dedicate their lives to protecting me, especially my grandchildren. I've probably been drinking PFAS since they started to make the first chemical that had one of the PFAS, or PFAS in it. So I just want to make sure that, and although you don't answer public comments, I just would like to see in some fashion down the road that this board maintains its intent to meet the standards that scientists developed, not politicians. And I don't think that's a hard thing to ask. So that's my main reason for speaking tonight, and I wanted to thank you. I hate the fact that public comments are always before anything to comment about happens, but I'll be here and I'll watch the presentation, and I hope. Lastly, they've given you guys till 2029. That doesn't give you an obligation to, we'll crawl there, because 26 million will become 36 million before 2029. So the bottom line is, I'd also like a pledge from this board that as they move along tonight, that they'll go as fast as they can. As fast as they can raise the money, as fast as they can get the science right, that this board commits to move along, not with a date of 2029, but a date of the day after tomorrow, if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Molly Mixon.
I am Molly Nixon. I live at 306 Bridget Way, Creedmoor, North Carolina, 27502. My question is, considering our small size, our aging water system, our limited funds, has the question been asked that we can join Raleigh's water supply? Raleigh and Wake Forest get their water from Falls Lake. Oxford gets their water from Kerr Lake. Could one or both maybe split us, take us on? It would seem faster, assuming Raleigh is in agreement, for them to take us on, for them to fight the PFAS battle, for their filtration system to be working. I do want to thank you as the board. We have elected you. You deserve our respect. I believe you're doing the best job you can for us. You are part of our community. You want what is best for us. And Scott, when we hired you, we put you in between a rock and a hard place. I sympathize with you. I work for a company that's often put me in a rock and a hard place. We need to work together. We need to work friendly. I don't know. I don't know the true history. I don't know what our legal obligations are. I just, in my mind, think that Raleigh is set up to do it better than we are. So I also want to thank you. You've done a wonderful job with the website.
Thank you.
I think we're all here for the same similar purpose. It's just we're not all working together. So thank you.
Thank you. Crystal, do we have one other?
So we can submit comments.
And if you will, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Corey Reagan. I live at 1601 Irving Place in Creedmoor.
Okay.
I stand before you today deeply frustrated and disappointed. This board is made up of both elected and appointed officials, representatives of the people. Yet time and time again, you have ignored the concerns of the very people you are supposed to serve. For years, our community has been asking for drinking water filters. I have personally been requesting them for months. Initially, I was told by board members that providing filters would be illegal. Whether you truly believed that or not, no one here took the initiative to verify that claim. So I did. I reached out to the EPA and the DEQ and confirmed that it is in fact not illegal. When I brought this information to you, the response was dismissive. I was told the cost would be $9,000 per filter. Again, I did the legwork. I contacted a company and secured a deal for $150 per unit. Yet no one from this board asked me for the company's information or my point of contact. The message this sends is clear. This board is not prioritizing the health and safety of the people you serve. The residents of this community have made it clear that clean drinking water is the top priority. We have not just voiced our concerns, we have presented solutions, and still nothing has been done. At last week's Board of Commissioners meeting, I learned that Creedmoor has a $5 million surplus. The cost of providing filters to all 6,500 homes served by this water system would be just under $1 million. When you break that down to the residents of Creedmoor and the individual municipalities, the cost is even lower. Factor in those who already have filters and those who may not want one, and the cost becomes even more manageable. This is a conversation that should be happening at your city meetings. Fundings for filter can and should be worked into local budgets. Just last week, Creedmoor approved the use of taxpayer dollars for a new outdoor play area. While investments in community spaces are important, how can we justify prioritizing a playground over ensuring those same children have access to clean, safe drinking water? As our representatives, you have a duty to listen to the community and act in its best interest. This is not a request, it's an expectation. We demand action, we demand accountability, and we demand clean drinking water.
And thank you for your comments. And that concludes our public comment section for tonight. And we move on to item 8, which is our board discussion items. And Vice Chair Kaczynski, do you have anything you want to bring forward tonight?
I do. At our last meeting, I advised this board that the city of Creedmoor was going to do water testing through Pace Laboratories, and I would like to report the results are in, and the water testing passed all the state guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything for board discussion items? All right, if not, we'll go to our PFAS pilot study update. And this is a presentation.
So this evening, our topic is the SGWASA PFAS pilot study update. We have a presentation for the board and for the public this evening. So in July 2023, SGWASA hired engineering consultant CDM Smith to assist us with meeting the PFAS regulations. CDM Smith was tasked with creating a PFAS pilot testing program for SGWASA. And the PFAS pilot testing program is associated with an existing CIP known as 101-07 at a total cost of $500,000. SGWASA applied to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, the NCDEQ, for grant funding for this program and was successful in receiving $500,000 in grant money for this project. The PFAS pilot testing project started in October 2024 and is scheduled to be completed in the summer of 2025. The results from the PFAS pilot testing program will be used to provide the criteria for engineering design and construction. At the previous board meeting, March 11th, 2025, during a discussion about a brief overview of PFAS technologies, I provided a brief overview of the various technologies being used to remove PFAS from the drinking water. During the overview of the various technologies being used to remove PFAS from the drinking water, I asked if the board members would like to receive a more in-depth presentation from CDM Smith. The board members agreed that they would appreciate a presentation. And so here we are this evening with a presentation by CDM Smith. So this evening, I would like to introduce members of CDM Smith. Reed Barton, would you please come forward and introduce yourself for the record?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Short. My name is Reed Barton. I'm a vice president with CDM Smith in our Raleigh office. And I have actually 3 staff members, but 2 that will be presenting today to you. So with us, as Mr. Schroyer mentioned, and I know that it can be frustrating at times, projects that involve major infrastructure and major changes often take a lot of time. Making adjustments at a water treatment plant are very significant and have big implications. So the state requires that they be studied fully before they're done, as I'm sure everyone understands the implications of making tweaks to water that then goes out to the whole community. So we are on a path now to study and then recommend, and we're pretty far along that path to coming to a firm recommendation of what treatment technology would be best for your water treatment plant. We are not there as of tonight, so there'll be another presentation in the future where you'll get a more firm answer. Tonight's just about giving an update, answering questions that you may have. So with that, I'll introduce Bill Dovigan and Mike Poulios. Mike Poulios is the project manager for our pilot study team, and Bill Dovigan is our water treatment discipline leader. Both deserve good introductions. I will say Bill has been I'm not sure the right term to put to it, but Bill is one of the most experienced water treatment designers in the Mid-Atlantic and South region. And very happy to say I've had more than a decade to work with him, and very happy for you to be able to ask him any questions you have tonight about PFAS.
Thank you, Reed. The next slide, please. So I'm going to begin with a brief update on the regulations. Many of you may already know this, but just for good background. So the rule was finalized in April of 2024 for the PFAS, and I'll explain which ones are regulated here in a minute. So in April of 2027, you have an initial monitoring deadline. And then April of 2029, you have to be in compliance. So what's that mean in compliance? It means you have maximum contaminant levels that are enforced that you have to comply with. And I'll show you those levels. And your it's annual average monitoring, like you currently have for THMs and AJAs. So that means in summer of 2028, you start the monitoring that you will have to be in compliance with in April of 2029. Okay. And they do have a reduced monitoring provision if you go 3 years with very low numbers. Next slide. So the limits in the PFAS regulations, the 2 that are most pressing for you are PFOA and PFOS. If you look at the PFAS compounds on the leftmost column, PFOA is the top one. That's perfluorooctanoic acid. And PFOS is perfluorooctane sulfonic acid. So these compounds are long-chain perfluorinated compounds. So they last in the environment a long time. I could go on too long, but I'll keep it short there. So the maximum contaminant levels that were promulgated are 4 part per trillion for each of those. Very low numbers, but it's health-based, scientific-based. And they do have the significant figure requirement of 2 to be very exacting. So in the example you see on the right of the slide, if you have a value of 4.04 nanogram per liter, running annual average, you're in compliance, but 4.05, 4.06, you're exceeding. Whereas with the other limits in the rule for PFNA, PFHXS, Gen X, all limited at 10 nanogram per liter, they only have a significant digit of 1. So in the example, you can see You can have 14.9 and it's rounded down to 10, so it's quite different. And then they also have a hazard index, which is explained in the figure at the bottom of the slide, where they take the concentrations of 4 compounds and divide them by their health-based water concentrations and add them up, and that has to be less than a value of 1. The significance of that is they're going to keep adding compounds in the future. So you can expect that in 20 years from now, there'll be quite a few more of these PFAS compounds regulated by adding them to this hazard index. But for right now, what you're having to deal with, the most restrictive aspect of this regulation for you is PFOA and PFOS, as we'll show in just a minute. Next slide. So this is your data for raw water, untreated water. Before you've added any powdered carbon, you all do take out some of the PFAS already by adding some powdered carbon. But your raw water, as shown both graphically on the right and with numbers on the left, exceed the current limits that will be effective in 2029. So you're not exceeding anything right now, but in 2029, you have to get down below 4 for PFOA and 4 for PFOS, whereas they're currently at 10.2 for PFOA and 26.1 for PFOS in the untreated water. And you can see that graphically on the right. The limit of 4 is shown with the green dashed line, and the bars going up are your concentrations. The upper graph is for PFOS in nanogram per liter. And you can see it hovers around 20 to 30 nanogram per liter for PFOS in your source water, whereas it hovers around 10 to 12 for PFOA. So you need treatment. Next slide. So what treatment technologies work? Well, granular activated carbon does work. You already add some powdered activated carbon to your raw water. Granular activated carbon after your filters would work quite well. Some plants have that already, as I'll discuss in a moment. But granular activated carbon could be added at your plant with post-filter contactors. And that is what we're pilot testing right now. We are also pilot testing ion exchange because that can work and sometimes be more effective, particularly for short chain compounds. So we'll compare those when we get the pilot data, enough pilot data to make conclusions. We're also looking at novel sorbents, which are fairly recent, hence the name novel, discoveries of ways to remove PFAS compounds. The novel sorbents work pretty well for the long chain PFOS and PFOA, not so well for the short chain. So we'll summarize all that in the report and make recommendations and compare them in many ways, including costs. We cannot compare O&M operating costs right now because we don't know how long they will last. That's what the pilot testing tells you. How long will it last? Next slide. So at Pittsboro, as an example, I mentioned that some plants in North Carolina already have this technology. Pittsboro had high levels, like many in the Cape Fear Basin, high levels of PFAS. So we already designed, built, implemented these GAC contactors that you see. These are in operation, and we did the design and construction and startup operations. And it's working very well. These are with GAC, but we designed these where they can actually work with ion exchange also and novel sorbents. But it's the way you design the internals of the contactor.
Can I ask a question? Right
Yes, sir.
What are their current numbers?
Oh, they can meet the 4 and 4 right now. Good question. Yes,
What is their daily output of water compared to ours?
Yeah, so Pittsburgh averages about 1 MGD. If you want one that's larger, Wilmington, way down at the end of the Cape Fear Basin, they're doing post-filter GAC, and they're a larger plant.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, I'll turn it over to our project manager.
I appreciate you guys having us here today. See the next slide, and we'll jump into the pilot update. So this is what we've been doing. We started with you guys planning a little before August, got to work early. We implemented the contract in August. You can go to the next slide. And we got running. And this all started early on last year when the state started giving out $500,000 grants to municipalities, authorities, anyone willing to treat and start planning for PFAS for public water. And we jumped on that bandwagon early. We pushed, we received the grant, and we got the pilot up and running much before many others in the state, which is great. And we finally got that pilot running in October. So we started in August. We had to procure materials, order it, set it up, and it's working great. Like Bill mentioned, we did the granular activated carbon. We're testing the anion exchange resin and the novel sorbent. And that picture on the left, what you see there is you see the two larger black columns. That's the GAC. And then there's three more columns. We're doing a couple of configurations, which I'll explain later. But those three columns on the right are anion exchange, novel sorbent, and anion exchange again. And the objectives of our pilot is we're trying to run it long enough that we can determine costs. So with any type of removal technology for PFAS, we use a media. The media adsorbs the contaminants and then it becomes spent. As an engineer, we want to determine how much we can absorb in a certain amount of time before media change out must occur. And that's what's going to get us the best life cycle cost. So every water source is different. There's, the water chemistry changes per your source, through your distribution system. So we want to make sure we're getting it right. So the state allows the pilot study, which allows us to determine the best treatment based on both cost and efficacy.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
The media would be the compound that you're using to purify
Correct.
the water.
Yeah. So the media, it's like, in this case, it's the
Correct.
GAC, the
Right.
exchange resin source.
What happens to that when it's used?
That's a great question. So a lot of it, the GAC people, they sometimes you can return it to them. And they will remanufacture it to be reused somewhere else. So, and most of the time, the other stuff is typically landfilled, incinerated, other items. But there is a waste product associated with media
like
change out.
lithium on solar panel.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all going to have to deal with. Okay, thank you.
And some that landfills are challenged with the same type of PFAS removal that we are on a different level. So that's the pilot. So next slide. This kind of gives you an update of what I'm saying. So we're looking at the columns. We want to, test a lot of different configurations to make sure there's not just one solution. So what you can see on the left there is our GAC columns, the two black. And the reason there's two is because you have to have more GAC media compared to the others. That's just the chemistry of the removal sites. And then in the middle, the gray column is the fluorosorb, which is our novel sorbent, and the yellow is our ion exchange, which is the DuPont Amberlite. And what's unique about the left is a lot of times we'll do lead lag configurations, which means we'll have a vessel that's treating the first hit, and then we'll have a second vessel in series behind it. And the reason that's important is when we start doing cost iterations, we can start determining that we can absorb as much contaminant in a vessel and then have a backup, like a buffer on the back end. And what that does is it allows us to have a sample point in between and making sure we're getting 100% use of that media. Otherwise, we have to calculate, how far over are we going to be the MCL to make sure we change out that media before it creeps over. So you might only get 90% of your media use. This way, a lead lag configuration has a higher capital expense, but it has a lower operating expense. So when you do the 20-year life cycle and you compare lead lag to just a lead vessel, you might find out that it is affordable and it is something that can help you. And if it's not affordable at this stage, there's ways to plan for it in the future. All right, next slide. So this is what I mentioned before. We were up and running October 2024. And I really want to reach out to Scott and Chris, and especially the plant staff. When we set up a pilot, it's not only dependent, for the engineering firm, us to be out there ensuring that it's running correctly, collecting samples and equipment, but there's a daily task associated with this. I mean, for a successful pilot, it has to run. We have to check it every morning, afternoon, evening. And we want to keep, the cost down. So instead of us being out there every day, the plant staff has been really great. They've done a great job recording data for us, and helping us out making this pilot successful. So that means that $500,000 grant we received from the state's being stretched over that 10-month period. And so it's really good collaboration. Really happy to report that. And, you know, the best thing about the pilot is we're seeing successful results in all three medias right now. And then, you know, the next phase, we have to get enough results to start the design phase. So we're getting close. I believe we're going to take another round of PFAS samples this week. And based on that, we'll get results in May. And we're going to have an interim report for Scott and others, either end of May, beginning of June. And that's going to start leading us to some preliminary treatment selection. And then we're going to run that all the way through the end in October. And then come November, we're going to have another presentation to the board that says, this is what the pilot told us, this is the results of the 20-year life cycle, and this is the technology we're recommending as the engineer to SGWASA.
That was November, correct?
Correct, yeah. And it's actually, it's next slide. I think I jumped the gun, so next slide, there we go. That's quizzing you. So there it is. So we're going to summarize all this in a pilot report. So we have to submit the report on October 19th to the state. That's one of the grant requirements. So that once that report's complete, it will be available to the board and other members. And we want your chance to review it, and then we'll set up the time, next board meeting, to review those results. Next slide. So this is the good part. This is the presentation of PFOA. As Bill mentioned, the critical parameters we're watching are the PFOA and the PFOS. So you can see it that actually the raw water concentrations are starting to trend downwards. I think as you know, people in the industry and the state were removing PFAS point sources. You know, industries are polluting less. So we're seeing those concentrations go down, but not away. So you can see that top dashed blue line represents the PFOA concentration. And it looks like it goes to 8, which is about double the MCL that's going to be enforced in April. And then you can see the black triangles represent what's coming out of the plant currently. We're getting pretty close. I mean, you're reducing it almost there. And then the bottom lines, the black, blue, and those dashed lines at the bottom represent our treatment technology. So the circle there represents the GAC. And the blue is the novel sorbent, and the ion exchange is at the bottom. And it's showing that all treatments are working great, you know, 130 days after start. Next slide. And similar with PFOS, you can see that Bill mentioned around the 20 to 30 nanograms per liter. We're seeing it started off around 20, and then the winter months we saw it dip down, but I'm sure as summer more water's used, rivers are flowing faster, we might see some uptick there. But again, you can see that the plant currently is removing. It's not passing it through. The PAC that you're putting in there is doing quite a bit. You know, it's looking like it's knocking, you know, 40 to 50% off. But we still have more to go. And it's showing below that red bar is the MCL. We're showing that all three technologies are successful at removing this compound. Any questions?
So the Calgon, the Amberlite, the Fluorosorb, those are all different. You're trying to find the best system out of all of those three?
That's correct.
I guess there's a fourth one.
Well, the fourth one is the Calgon, followed by the Amberlite, that
Okay.
lead black configuration. We're trying to see if there's any advantage that Amberlite lasts longer if you have a GIC that takes the front hit.
So you were saying that the media goes to either be recycled or it can go in a landfill. If it goes into a landfill, doesn't it affect the groundwater and cause more PFAS?
Correct. So landfills have their own challenges, right? So they are, you know, landfills are capped and lined, so they contain the water, and water is removed, and they have their own treatment systems, and they are tasked right now with the same as trying to remove PFAS.
Okay. Just want to make sure we weren't giving it to them and starting us all over.
Right, right. Yeah. And that's what's interesting. There, you know, new technologies are developed every day, and that novel sorbent, you know, they're actually using, you know, not landfills, but for groundwater remediation as well. And they know plumes going through, they're actually building, instead of putting the media in a vessel, they're building walls in the ground that help knock it down. That's completely out of this picture, but that's something, you know, we're seeing in the engineering world.
I appreciate these two charts, the one before this and this one, because it does show that there is progress being made, and
absolutely,
we're not just up here
Yeah.
saying things are being done, but now we can see that it is, and it's quite amazing.
Yeah, and we're in month 6 out of 10 of our pilots. So I mean, we're moving fast, and I think for us as the engineers, we see SGWASA and their willingness to make sure this happens fast.
Yeah, but you know, based on these charts, what we're putting out presently to our customers, Yeah, the sky's not falling, but we have ways to go.
Correct.
We have ways to go, more work to do, but it's not, oh no, the sky's falling. We got 10 times the allowable limit going out.
Correct. Yeah. You're showing that you're reducing a plant, and that we found treatment technologies that will be effective in treating the PFOA and PFOS.
So from looking at this chart and the chart before, are you pretty much saying the novel solvents pretty much bringing it down to almost nothing once it's treated?
Well, we're showing that right now. There hasn't been a breakthrough, I think, at this point, and I think this goes back to our February sampling. And we're getting our March results now. It's always a month behind. But what we're showing is that the Fluorosorb and Amberlite, the novel sorbent and ion exchange haven't shown breakthrough yet. But the GAC, we saw initial breakthrough, but you can see it's just been hovering. It's kind of reached a steady state. If you go back a slide for the last few sampling events, you can see where it's hovered at 2. So
Right, so it's brought it way below the mandated
correct.
4. So,
but I think when you look at capital costs, each media, GAC media might be less expensive than the ion exchange media. So when you start looking at life cycle costs, ion exchange can become a better selection if you can get it to last longer. And that's what Reed mentioned, or Bill mentioned, the point of designing these vessels, not for one media, but for, all three. Because as things change in the future, they add more components, short chains, things like that. It allows you to start analyzing different types of media, and it gives you the option to change to what best fits the media.
so going back to a few slides to Pittsburgh's system that was designed that is currently in place.
Correct.
How often does the media have to be changed out in their system? I know, like you said, all systems are different. All systems are, based on the area that they're in.
So I guess Bill.
Pittsburgh went over a year and with very low levels before they had to change one of the. Every job is site specific. So your numbers you'll hear once we have the results and for the pilot test. But very favorable results in their case.
What was the construction time?
We built what you see there in less than a year. We went from 60% design to online. Can't guarantee that, until we study your job, but that's what we did there.
That was through an alternative delivery, design build versus design bid build. So it allows you to escalate schedule.
Can you repeat that, please? It was a design to build?
Design build.
Okay.
So the Bill mentioned it's 60%.
As opposed to design, then bidding to different contractors
Right.
and then building. With design build, you have the same group doing
Right.
both design and construction. So you're able to speed a lot of it up by overlapping tasks.
And I think that's what we discussed, right? One more question.
Yeah.
What was the results when you first started at Pittsburgh as far as the range it had for each of those? Was it very high? Yeah.
As
The
soon
raw
as you put
numbers.
those on, the levels drop tremendously. Very similar to what you saw at the start of your pilot testing.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think what we're seeing here at the pilot testing, like Bill said, it initially knocked it down. Most all of them to non-detect. And so if you go to the next slide, I guess it's slide 15, we see some hexagons. There we go. So these are the hazard index compounds. So what we've noticed that there's been most of these compounds were either non-detect or below the MCL in the raw water samples. And essentially what we're seeing, when we do the pilot studies is that most of them were non-detect and some were, at the method detection limit, which means the analytical instruments the laboratories have, they're just picking them up underneath us. So, our confidence in those numbers, pretty much non-detect because they're lower than what they can detect. So we're showing that the pilot's knocking out these hazard indexes as well. And the only thing we haven't really seen come through is Gen X. That has been 0 coming in, 0 going out.
Wow.
Next slide. Thanks. All right, so funding update. So we came up with a planning estimate early, based on very limited information. We needed a planning estimate to start requesting funds. So we came up with this planning estimate to prepare for SRF funding. We've gone through 2 cycles now, and we will be applying for the 3rd this April. And the further you get down the design process, the better your chances are. So us having a pilot that's more than halfway through will hopefully give us a better number. And I say number, but they have a score sheet where they give you a better score that'll maybe outcompete some other communities who haven't started pilot testing. And as sure as you guys know, we've secured a $5 million grant. Well, Scott secured that from state appropriated funds in 2023. So that's being applied to the PFAS. We've worked with the state, aligning that money. We've received approval, and we're going through the intent to fund that now. So there's some paperwork that needs to be done, but that is going to be unlocked, and that money can be used to start the design process. So we're doing this so once we finish piloting, that there's no stop, that we continue this project, foot on the gas. And then at the bottom is the future SR funding. So they do a fall and spring application. We're in the spring application now, but we are going to keep applying and get as much money as we can for SGWASA. Any questions?
Do you see new technology coming out
Oh, absolutely.
other
All
than
the time, yeah.
these 4?
We see new technology and we make sure we're apprised of it. And even this one, there's a local company in North Carolina that thinks they have a media that can be used, but it's very hard to get enough of the media to pilot test. So when we hear new things, if we can fit it in, we will. If we can get it in a nearby resource or do something, it's helpful. But I think the good news for you is as we design these contactors in the future, and once they're up and running, you have the ability to even pilot test different money. So as with anything, you can optimize treatment. It's always something. So as new media comes out, that's something we can test. And you also have the growth component. So we're trying to design these systems to be modular. So treat your capacity today and expand for future capacity. So if there is a newer, better technology for that future capacity as you continue to grow, you can use your capital dollars to spend on that better technology. But we're designing around the best technology we know about right now.
So the 5 million he was talking about, that's the 5 million we just got the approval from DEQ for PFAS.
That is correct. We received a letter with an intent to fund the project. To move forward with that process, there's a required resolution from the board, and you will see that at your upcoming meeting, basically the meeting in May for that. So that will complete that packet, and we can send that back to DEQ to continue with that process to support this project.
Okay.
Yeah, and we show the 4,925 there because there's a fee associated with administration of the levy with the state.
$75 for a letter?
No, 75,000 is a cut.
75,000 is insane.
It's a lot.
I'll write a letter for 75,000.
Your letter will as good as
Next slide. So looking at the project schedule, you can see on the right-hand side, bottom right, April 2029 is our target date. If possible, we want to beat that date. But going through, walking through this, I mentioned we're in a 6-month out. We're doing some sampling. We're hoping to get that sampling and start some preliminary cost estimates so we can look at a preliminary treatment selection in May. We want to say, based on the results, these 2 technologies, this one technology appears to be the best on the pilot. And we want to get that in your mind so we can start thinking about some early design methodologies, items that we can escalate schedule. And then we'll complete the pilot in October. And when the pilot's complete, we will have a board meeting in November. But the purpose of that pilot report is also to select the final treatment. So in that pilot report, there will be a conclusion in October of 2025 that states of the 3 medias we tested, which one, as an engineer, we recommend based on cost and efficacy. And then from there, if we started our final design in January, there's going to be some master planning items that have to happen from October to January, looking at the plant facility and where best it is to put this system And once that's decided, design will start. And if it's design schedule, bidding, permitting, all that, we're aiming to complete that by March of 2027. And that's just a very high level schedule right now. None of this is set in stone, but this is kind of the worst case schedule that showing that we can meet the proposed April 2029 deadline. And then our goal is to award that construction contract in 2027. We anticipate it being a 24-month construction period. So there's going to be, right now we're seeing 6 to 12 months to secure and procure materials, whether, it's the vessels itself, electrical equipment, whatever it might be. That'll happen. And then there's probably going to be, during that procurement timeline, there'll be civil work going on, buildings being constructed, and then typically the last 12 months of construction is installing the treatment technology, and then the last month being startup. Any questions on schedule?
Yeah, I don't want to wait till 2029. I would like to move forward as soon as we find out our results.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's everyone's feeling is let's attack this as quick as we can.
I mean, especially if we were able to do the Pittsburgh project in under a year.
I agree. It seems reasonable.
Yeah, 2029.
That's reasonable, but we have to come up with the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the part.
I'm asking all the time.
You need to start looking for the money very hard.
We've been looking for it. We have been looking for it at the state level, the federal level. We were in talks last week with at the Senate level, and we talk every week to somebody.
Commissioner Way has reached out to federal level to try and get some funding. Isn't that right?
Yeah, spoke to Senator Tillis' office.
Yeah.
Maybe we all need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we at the county level
We can't
with
go all the way
Tillis
just have our
and
information.
Bud's office.
No funding.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been working with both representatives from both offices. You never get to talk to the senator themselves,
Right.
but you get to talk to the people.
Yeah.
And we're working with our people here in the state.
So can this be expedited, or is funding the reason we're holding back?
We're not done.
Majority here. Yeah, I was going to say. Thank you, Mike. Yes, I'll get on the mic. There we go. The question was, can it be expedited? The answer is yes, but there's a couple factors that are very important for expediting it. One will be the technology that's being picked. So PFAS is affecting about 20% of the utilities in North Carolina. Some states are higher, but if you imagine that across 50 states, the type of equipment that's used to treat this is in hot demand right now. There are long lines forming around ordering this equipment. The contracting community that installs it is obviously very busy. My advice to all the utilities that we have been working with in this capacity is that the sooner you're in movement on construction, the better, because there will start to be a line formed. And I will say that the message from Scott throughout this project has been, we need to move with speed. And I know Scott's been very cognizant of the fact that lots of utilities are facing this same regulation, sitting in the exact same way. In North Carolina alone, our firm has done 16 of these pilot studies, and we're only one engineering firm. There's a lot of utilities impacted by it. So one of the ideas that is being discussed is design build. Design build is where you take what is a process where you do design, you get a permit to build that, you hire a contractor builds it, and then at the end the engineer certifies it. That's your typical way of building an infrastructure project.
Design build is an alternative way of doing it. And I say alternative, it's very commonly used on plant projects, water plant, wastewater plant projects, but you are able to overlap. While you're designing, your contractor is in the room giving ideas. So he's not giving his bright ideas after it's already built. And you're obtaining permits while the contractor is ordering equipment and having things delivered to the site. There's a lot of overlap. So the Pittsburgh was mentioned tonight. That was a very successful project, similar to the communities here. The town of Pittsburgh was very concerned. They weren't waiting for an MCL. They were very concerned about the levels in their water, and they wanted it fixed as soon as possible. So they did a pilot study. They got to similar to where you were, where the pilot study wasn't fully done, but the writing was on the wall on what the best treatment technology was. They immediately went forward with a design build RFQ, selected a design builder, and spoiler alert, that was our firm. And Bill mentioned it was constructed in 12 months. There was a little bit of design before that. The full schedule, I believe, was 18 months from where we stopped piloting, and then we had water running through the grano-activated carbon system and achieving non-detective PFAS on day one. So it was honestly, it was a very happy day. Media was out at the water plant, and the town was able to make an announcement. We've been running it for 1 week and we have no PFAS in our water. So it's very exciting.
All right. So what I understand, coming up, you'll have your 6-month pilot testing complete.
Yes. Each month we run a comprehensive set of lab sampling to see how everything's doing. So as Mike mentioned, we just sent off all the shipment of samples to the lab for March, but we don't have it. We don't have that data back yet.
You want to do a 12-month pilot, correct?
Yeah.
So can you come back to us in a month whenever you get the final, the 6-month, and where you think we should file?
I don't know that the data is going to tell you anything different just 1 month from now. What we'd recommend is that the word breakthrough has been mentioned a couple times today. That's when you're looking at the data and for months, no PFAS is getting through the adsorption media. All of a sudden, 20% is getting through. And then the next month, 40% is getting through. And that curve of getting to where 100% of the PFAS that's coming into the treatment is now passing through, that's what we call a breakthrough curve. Right now, almost all of them are removing a substantial, if not 100% of the PFAS. Until there's a breakthrough, we don't know which one is going to outperform the other.
Gotcha.
And it can be a pretty significant cost difference. If one sorption media lasts 8 months and the other one lasts 11 months, when you multiply that, at the scale we're going to build it at, millions of gallons of water a day, 365 days a year, it can be a pretty significant cost difference. So we're looking for the most cost-effective way to remove a broad spectrum of PFAS. And that's the target. Scott and Chris and the team on staff have asked us, is there a point where we can start the beginnings of design, even when we maybe have a month or two left? If we start to see that breakthrough curve forming, so professional judgment is 2 to 3 months from now, we're going to have the answer. I believe if SGWASA would like to, we can begin design at that point. Obviously, you don't want to get too far down the design road until final decision's made, but you can get a little bit down the design road. Scott, anything to add to that?
No, I think that was a good summary. Thank you.
Okay.
Pittsburgh, what were the levels they were experiencing in the intake?
This is Bill. This is jogging our memory back to
Yeah.
2018, 2019. So as Mike mentioned, some of the levels in the river, in everybody's rivers, has been coming down a little bit, and I think it's because this topic is getting so much attention. The state is putting more pressure on industrial users and what they put back in rivers.
I've read some
Pittsburgh was in the
pretty
hundreds.
astronomical
It
numbers
was
there.
it was well over 100. It was like depending on the day and the time of sampling, it would go up and down. But there were samples that were well over 100 of PFOS and PFOA.
And then it dropped as the years went on, like
Yeah.
most people are saying.
Yeah.
One other thing, if I could add, Reed mentioned how we had that 1 year of construction, and we had about 6 months of design before that. The other trick that is needed is to order equipment, your long lead equipment, and we did that for Pittsburgh as part of the phase 1 of the design build. So you have to have your contract for design build, and you have to have the money to order the equipment to get that super fast schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I don't think we're the only company doing this, but some companies, including ours, who work in this industry, have pre-ordered the materials to build these vessels. And we did so years ago. And it's so that we can make them very, very quickly. And we're doing that nationwide. We have fabrication shops in Florida and in Denver. And the purpose is because the feelings you guys are having right now around this topic is going on everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not uncommon. And finding the materials to make this, as Bill said, you can just order steel and wait 6 months for it to show up.
So May 25 preliminary treatment selection, and then 5 months later final treatment selection. What is going on during those 5 months that we have to wait those 5 months before we can move on to the next step? Are we just testing the preliminary treatment that we chose?
There is an opportunity to proceed with beginning design work in that interim period that you're describing. I think it would be good to start to see the breakthrough curve before you actually start having designers put pen to paper. But as it's beginning, I think it would be fully reasonable to start design at that point.
But if we hit that breakthrough curve during that 5 months, we're going to come back to the drawing board and we're going to have to do something different. Or are we going to stay with our preliminary treatment?
So all of these treatment technologies, that we're looking at are going to go into the same type of steel vessel. A good way of explaining it, could we go back on the slide to the Pittsburgh slide as the picture? Actually, that one's fine. It's got the steel vessels. This picture doesn't do it justice. These are about 28 foot tall. Each one of them holds 40,000 pounds of activated carbon. But they are a very large version of what goes into refrigerator filters. When you buy a refrigerator filter to go in your LG refrigerator, well, it won't last nearly as long as this does. It's filled with packed carbon that's been treated, and it removes a wide range of chemical pollutants. So I don't want to oversimplify it. It's more sophisticated than what goes in your refrigerator, but the technology is not all that different. This is just on a much bigger scale. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I totally forgot the question. I don't want to keep going.
Well, if we select a preliminary treatment and we watch it and it gets to the breakthrough point, do we have to go back and select a different treatment again?
So all of the technologies that we're testing right now are currently removing substantially,
right,
most or all of the PFAS. We never say all because there's always some fraction that we can't even measure. So you can't even guarantee that it's 100%, right? 99.9.
So I believe you made the statement, everyone will have to have these two big tanks.
So
everybody that has whatever we decide will have to have these two big tanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. That's where my train of thought was going. Thank you. All of the media type we're currently testing, the novel sorbents, the ion exchange media, and the granular activated carbon, will all fit in this type of vessel. The interior components of it may be modified a little bit between the two, the different selection, but generally speaking, it's the same technology. And we have big picture questions. How are we going to pump it into these vessels? When it comes out, how are we going to control the flow and make sure it gets the right chemicals added back to it afterwards. So there's a lot of design. We don't just pull this off the shelf, plug it in. There's a lot of other design considerations that we could start on early, even before we're at the point with needing to settle all the internal components within that vessel. So there's several months of design that I don't think would be wasted before October 2025.
And by what I understood, you've already ordered some of this material to build these and already have them.
And I can't say they're not spoken for, because we're literally working for dozens and dozens of
Correct.
utilities across the U.S. But these are very commonly needed, to the point that as a company, we are, before orders come in, pre-purchasing the raw materials and sending them to our fabrication facilities so they can be made.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I understood. I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying.
That is correct.
And I believe in the earlier presentation, talking about the Pittsburgh system, it's been designed to do at least 2 of the medias if they want to swap it out.
The pilot study showed that it was complex because they had more chemicals than you guys have. There was a wider range. So I don't want to open a can of worm into a broader scientific discussion, but we recommended a 2-phased approach where they install these in phase 1 because that's what they had enough money for at the time. We did recommend a second treatment after these as a phase 2. The long story here is that Pittsburgh's water plant was bought by Sanford before phase 2 was installed, but it's kind of a moot point, right? That these were for PFAS removal, and they performed well from day 1.
So they never added the.
They never added phase 2. So Sanford, Sanford took merged. They took over 3 utilities. They're in the process of taking over Chatham. They took over Pittsburgh and Siler City. So there's an administrative change, and I haven't heard if they've decided to move with phase 2 yet. Phase 2 was to address 1,4-dioxane, which is another bad chemical that can be in the rivers, but it's not in your river, in your reservoir.
Wonderful.
1,4-dioxane. It's a degreaser. It's a nasty thing. In North Carolina, unfortunately, has a big problem with it.
Where does the components for this come from?
Since
the entire world is afraid of tariffs, let's see what we can do and let us know. This is going to delay it again.
I've been asked that a lot lately. What does tariffs do to construction schedules and price? The true answer is I don't know yet.
The reason I'm asking is I have got citizens that are terrified and they're worried. And we are doing everything we can, thank God, with your help. And the progress you've made already with the testing is amazing to me. It looks like we're closer than I thought we were. And I'm very, very happy that $500,000 is being spent very well, in my opinion. But if this gets delayed, I think we're going too close to the May of 2029 deadline. And if we could expedite it so that we have a bigger cushion there.
Yeah.
But supply chain issues.
I appreciate you saying that. We did our best to put together a schedule. We can go back to it. It's on the last slide. I do want to give a little caveat. There are a lot of potential items that could delay any one of those steps along the road. We understand that the desire is to move as fast as possible. We will do everything we can to move this as fast as possible, but what you just said is true, is that there really isn't any float in this schedule. One thing that has been discussed at the project level is, are there any interim fixes, any interim steps that can be done if the progression doesn't look like it's going to hit April 2029, even if it's inefficient, even if it's more costly? Are there any interim Band-Aids that could be put on the plant that you wouldn't want to operate for 20 years, but you could operate for 1 year? And so that's a discussion point that's ongoing. I don't have any conclusions on that, but frankly, that's a discussion point that a lot of utilities are having right now.
Okay.
I think most are looking at that April 2029 and how long it typically takes to deliver a capital project from getting the funds, design done, permitting, construction. It's a big lift to do it in 4 years.
Do you see that date extending?
There was an announcement today that
Just by what you said, everybody's trying to do this all at the same time. And eventually, everybody can't get it done at the same time.
yes. Let me do a safer answer.
Okay.
I
didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I have heard experts with DEQ say they do not believe there's an extension coming. I have heard other experts outside of DEQ say they would be surprised if there's not an extension. So I've heard both sides, and I think we'll know something here in the next 2 or 3 months. You may be aware there's a lawsuit in California challenging the regulation. It doesn't challenge the regulation as a whole. I think everybody agrees. It's a bipartisan agreement that PFAS doesn't need to be in people's bodies. But the exact timeline and the exact details of the regulation, a lawsuit's been filed against them. And that lawsuit's been there for a while. The lawsuit's been there for almost a year, 10 months, long time.
How about the one that AWWA is part of?
That's the one.
That's
They
the
filed
one.
it in
That's the one you're
California.
talking about. Okay.
The current administration, originally when they came into office, the head of the EPA asked the judge in that case, so AWWA and their co-plaintiffs are suing against the federal government to say, we don't like this law, it wasn't formulated with good science. That's the argument. One of the big things they levy in that lawsuit is that they don't believe that EPA considered the cost. There was a cost estimate prepared. They believe it's underestimating the national cost of implementing this regulation.
And isn't one of the allegations in that suit also that the EPA violated their own process and coming to a conclusion?
That's part of the allegation, was that there was a process. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's part of it. Yes. When the new administration came, so the old administration, the Biden administration, EPA had been fighting that lawsuit. The new administration came in and asked the judge for a 90-day stay to determine what they want to do. So do they continue to fight that lawsuit, or do they do something different? And I'm not fully even aware legally what are their options to do anything different. I don't. That's outside my lane. But as of today, they filed for another month to consider their options. So that was in the news today that they want one more month to consider their options.
I was a bit surprised that AWWA joined in on that, but
I agree with that. I think that I live here in the Triangle, and I won't say what town I live in. It's not this town, but I drink water that has PFAS in it, and we're all in the same boat. We want to do what you guys are already doing, which is remove as much as you can, and then get the final product, the final treatment in place as soon as possible. And I think most of the communities in this area and the general population in this area all are wanting the same thing.
I had a question about the project schedule.
Yes, ma'am.
So at the bottom part, it says October 2025 select final treatment, and then it goes to March 2027 for complete design, permit, and buildings. So I was just wondering how much, that's over, almost a year in there. I was just wondering what was gonna take place. I was thinking about what you told us, what you have to do to get
Right.
your components. You have to get the permit, the bidding. Does it take that long?
I would say that this schedule doesn't have the complexity built into it to explain all of those details very well. I definitely acknowledge it's not. When you go from October 25 and then it goes, if you go to above the line, it says starting final design, January 2026. Between October 25 and January 26, there are 2 design reports that have to be prepared, both submitted to the state. one is called an engineering report and environmental information document, and the other one is a basis of design report. That gets you to January 2026. January 26, you start final design. That's where we're doing plans and specifications. So this would, what the construction team will build is obviously a set of plans and a set of specifications. So you begin that. That has to be completed and then permitted. So that generally is going to take all of a year. We're showing a year and 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you file your report to the state, is that just to let them know where SGWASA is at this point with the PFAS project?
The reports are required. One of those reports is required to the state because there's an agency at the state called Public Water Supply that anything you change at your water plant, they regulate. They're there to protect public water. The other part of the state that the other report goes to the Division of Water Infrastructure. They handle funding, and the assumption is that part of this funding for this project will come through the state. Therefore, they have a report that has to be filled out where they review a lot of details about the project. It's not, report probably feels like a fluffy answer. It's a very technical report.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the carbon, similar to what we have in our refrigerator.
Yes.
Will that help us as far as the water we use in-house
Yes.
to remove PFAS?
Yes, a carbon filter in your refrigerator is a great way to remove PFOS and PFOA, which are the two that we've talked about here. Just like we've talked about in the pilot study, the media gets exhausted and stops absorbing. Refrigerator filters act the same way, so if you push them too far, they're just not working anymore. So I generally recommend that those get changed out more on the shorter side than the longer side, just
Right.
especially if chemicals like this are of concern.
Yeah, because they time out
Yeah,
and
mine
let you
will
know.
tell me it needs to be changed.
Yeah, so we could change them
Yes.
earlier.
Well, I think the schedule personally how I operate it at my house is I generally feel the schedule they have, which is about 6 months or so, is conservative enough. But there's folks that probably keep them in 2 years and then change them. They're probably not doing much at that point.
Oh, gracious.
Please don't wait 2 years.
No.
So what agency do you send your design for approval? Is it DWR, DEQ, who is it?
Public Water Supply is the section that approves the actual technical treatment.
The reason is DWR is understaffed.
The state
Extremely.
is very understaffed.
And I'm just concerned that if we are up against a deadline and it sits there because everybody's moving their stuff at the same time to the same agency that's understaffed.
Yes, and so I mentioned that this schedule sounds really great. There's a lot of areas for things to get delayed outside of all of our control. That is one of them. Not getting the funding in time to start as soon as possible could be a delay. Permits being delayed. Depending on the type of funding that is obtained, some of those fundings require extra reports, extra steps. It's always good to get big grants and low interest loans, but they often have extra steps that have to be done with them. So I don't want to paint a negative picture. It's just kind of normal business in the world of water treatment.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Answered all my questions.
Have we exhausted you?
No, I can bring another voice up if you guys are tired of my voice. But no, we're excited about this project. You guys are in a good position to deal with this quickly. And we'll continue to work with Scott and Chris and the staff and advise on the best path forward.
Thank you. I appreciate the CDM Smith team being here this evening. Thank you. I'd just like to say a couple things, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I hope the board asked for a deep dive. I hope you appreciated what you got for the last hour.
Wonderful.
On this topic, a lot of information.
Yeah.
My takeaway is from just listening to the discussion this evening. Thank you, Ruth. Is that you understand the pressure that the organization has upon it to move forward quickly to remove this. With this timeline, the clock is ticking for us. The problem that we're going to face is how fast can we move in terms of our funding? That's gonna be the issue here. We're gonna have to sit down here within the next couple of months, Finance Committee and the board, and talk about this. I hear tonight, you wanna move quickly, let's start tomorrow. Well, we've got $5 million towards this project right now, which is fantastic. The price tag is $26 million. So at some point, we're going to have to address that as well to pace ourselves moving forward. Now, the good news is we can keep applying for grants along the way while we're building this project. But we can't wait till the end of it, obviously. We can't wait around for money to drop on us. It's great that you're going to reach out to representatives to look for more money. We're doing the same thing. In fact, the next item that's coming up talks about another application that we're making to the state for more funding for PFAS. But I think that's going to be the challenge here that we're going to have very quickly, is just to determine what are we going to build, how fast can we build it, what can we afford to build at this point, how do we bring that whole package together. So that's kind of our top project right now. It's kind of easy to say we've got the I-85 project under wraps and we're moving out the door. I mean, that's a huge project, and it's taken us since 2019 to get to where we are today. And we didn't have a clock ticking. We didn't have technologies changing as far as how to deal with sewage. That's the good part. So I think that you can appreciate the challenges with this and with the technologies that are changing. But I want to ensure the board that we're moving very quickly as we can. And we have been ever since this information came down to us in 2022 that we had to move in this direction. So very challenging, but again, I hope that you appreciate the presentation this evening and an opportunity to ask your questions, and it won't be the last presentation for Q&A. We'll keep moving forward with this. So I appreciate the opportunity to say a couple of things, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. We appreciate it. All right, agenda item number 10. Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Resolution of Support related to PFAS water treatment improvements.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm not going to go into PFAS information here, because maybe it's included at the top of the report, but I'll just kind of zoom down to a section in the report that talks about SGWASA submitted applications previously in 2023 and 2024 on 2 occasions for Drinking Water State Revolving Fund grants to address PFAS compliance, engineering design, and construction. However, SGWASA has been unsuccessful in receiving grants for PFAS compliance, engineering, design, and construction. But I think that we heard this evening when the question was asked, you know, what would change next time we put an application in? And with us doing the pilot program and moving down that road, I think that you get some extra points for that. So we may score more points, which would allow us to get some funding here as we move forward. As we did mention, we applied for a $500,000 grant for the PFAS pilot testing program, and we were successful in obtaining that, which is fantastic. And we also mentioned the $5 million grant that we've received, which I'll be bringing a resolution to the board next month regarding that notice of intent to fund. So what is this item about? This item is about a resolution by the governing body that's required by the governing body to allow me to fill out the application for this next funding round. So that's what we have here. So you can actually, one resolution can get you through a couple of years of funding applications. That time has expired. So we're to the point now that I would request the board of directors review and approve the resolution and authorize the executive director to execute and file the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund application on behalf of SGWASA. So I provided to you a copy of that resolution that's attached. Of course, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding that resolution. The next steps will be, if the board approves this item, I will continue to put the application package together, working with CDM Smith, and we'll get that submitted by the deadline here this month. And then usually it's about 5 to 6 months before we get information back from the state on whether we're successful or not in obtaining any funding for this project.
Okay. Does this require a vote by the board?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
You got a motion to approve. Do you hear a second?
Second.
We got a second in 2 places.
Everybody.
Everybody's second.
Everybody's second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
So
None?
I don't understand why you need us to vote on filling out to get money for us. I don't understand that.
Well, there are certain obligations in the resolution that say if you're awarded money that you'll comply with the state regulations and rules in doing that. And from my professional opinion, boards need to be aware when you put applications in for funding, and it's beyond my capabilities or approval level just to submit applications without the board supporting that. I may not be here tomorrow, and I may have committed you to an application or funding saying that we'll pay for the funding of this project. So it's moving in that direction, and it's required.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any further discussion on the?
When is
On the
the
motion?
deadline for this grant application?
I don't know the exact date, but it's this month, basically.
And how long does it take for an approval?
You said 5 months.
About 6 months before we hear anything from them.
And we're asking for the money specifically for the design build of the PFAS. That's all that money's gonna be for if we get it.
We're requesting $26 million, yes.
And that's in his, recommendation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's in
Yeah,
there.
it's in there.
Yeah, I wanna make sure it's,
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it, motion carries. And we're down to Richard Ballmer time.
That's exactly what I was thinking. That's why I looked up at him.
Item number 11.
That's heavy stuff. This is easy and fast. So in your agenda packet, you have item 11. That's the annual contract of the audit award. This is for the fiscal year 24-25 year in auditing services. The requested action is we're seeking the Board of Directors' approval to execute the audit contract for fiscal year 24-25 with Winston Williams Beach Evans and Company, LLP. Just a brief summary, you remember that this is the third year. We bidded this out 3 years ago with a commitment to stick to a 3-year term. This is the third year. We've been very pleased with the audit firm in the past. And you have some background there. I won't read through all that, but you'll see the cost. The first year was $8,900. Last year was $9,050. And fiscal year 24-25, the contract you have before you is for $9,200. So very reasonable cost. Then basically the analysis is in accordance with the RFP, the intent of the authority is to continue the audit relationship for at least 2 subsequent fiscal years. And we've been pleased with the audit firm. We are expecting a single audit again this year, of course, because of the ARPA funding, which pushes us over the limit requirement, single audit. Next steps, if the board approves this item, the engagement letter and audit contract will be signed by the appropriate SGWASA management and governing board officials, and the documents will be provided to the auditor and the LGC. Staff recommendation is that the executive director and finance director recommend awarding the contract, the audit contract to the audit firm of Winston Williams Creech Evans and Company LLP for fiscal year 24-25 audit at a cost of $9,200. The executive director's recommendation is that the board of directors enter a 1-year contract with Winston Williams Creech Evans and Company LLP for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025 audit in the not to exceed amount of $9,200, and authorize the executive director, finance director, board chair, and finance committee chair to execute the contract and all related documents accordingly.
All right. Any questions for Richard?
I may have a question.
Okay.
So this is for them to do it this year or for next year?
This is for the current fiscal year, so they'll conduct the audit, and we'll do the audit field work in August.
Gotcha.
For the year ending June 30th, the current year we're in. We always bring the audit contract. Some places wait until late in the year. We like to lock down our auditor because there are scarce resources these days. Very few audit firms still do audits. So we like to lock down the contract and go ahead and get the field work scheduled before they get booked out.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve that.
Second.
A second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Second. All right. If there's no discussion on the motion, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it, motion carries. And item number 12, fiscal year 24-25 budget amendment number 15.
You have in your agenda packets budget amendment number 15 for this fiscal year. Background, the budget amendment number 15, fiscal year 24-25, reallocates budget in the water treatment plant department for an increase in permitting fees related to the annual Granville Farms land application sludge permit, and for repair costs related to a recent raw water pump failure at the water treatment plant's raw water station. The drive that controls the raw water pump failed, causing the pump to fail. In addition, budget will be reallocated in the water line maintenance department. That's to cover costs associated with restocking supplies and materials that were used for multiple water line breaks that occurred over the winter. No additional fund balance has been appropriated in this budget amendment, which is a little unusual. Included in this legislative memo, in the supporting document, you have some budget amendments that were internally approved by the executive director using his authority as outlined in section 3 of the fiscal year 24-25 budget ordinance. You have that verbiage in front of you that's in the ordinance. These items are included in the supporting document for internal informational purposes only. These budget amendments include a reallocation of budget in the waterline maintenance department to cover a fire hydrant tap repair, increased license costs for Harris Financial Software, Microsoft licenses for email and Dude Solutions, as well as a reallocation of budget in the sewer line maintenance department to cover fleet maintenance items and increased license plate renewal cost. The attachments you'll see that prior this year, prior 14 budget amendments total just over $13 million in fund balance being used, with the majority of that coming out of capital improvement fund balance. Only about $500,000 out of operating fund balance. You have the supporting document in your agenda. The executive director's recommendation is that the SGWASA Board of Directors approve budget amendment number 15. Any questions on the budget amendment?
Nope. Motion to approve.
Okay, no questions. Have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And now comments from our executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Appreciate your attention to all the items this evening. Continue to advance SGWASA forward. I'd also like to thank the CDM Smith team for their PFAS presentation this evening. I thought it was a great presentation. That information will be up on our website, both in presentation form and also the conversation that we had this evening as well. You normally get the video up, usually within...
Tomorrow.
Within tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. I appreciate that. Crystal's going to work all night. But great information, great resource information for us. I'd also like to thank Chris Summerlin, Richard Ballmer, and Crystal Lee for their preparation in tonight's meeting agenda and packet. They always do a great job to assist me with getting the agenda out. A couple of items here, a couple of great announcements. On 3/28/25, we actually had our I-85 sanitary sewer SGWASA sewer improvement project, CP number 1, groundbreaking event. So thank you for all that attended that. We had a beautiful day for that event, and it's great to get CP number 1 up and running. We actually have contractors on site starting April 1st doing some clearing at the Joe P, the new Joe P pump station, which is fantastic. So we'll continue to keep the board updated on that project as we move forward. We got some good news recently about CP number 2. So as the board may recall, CP number 2 has not been bid out for work yet or under construction. That project, heavily resourced by the USDA, requires their approval before we actually move out and bid that project. We just received their approval to move forward with that. So we're looking mid-month of April to actually advertise CP number 2, which means the board will see some information, bid awards, contracts coming to them in the next 60 days or so for CP number 2. So we did talk about having both construction projects under construction this summer. I think we're still moving on that timetable. So that was great news for all of us. Let's see. That's it. That's all I have for this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Comments from our attorney. Got anything for us?
Nothing this evening. Pleasure to be with you all this evening.
Yes, thank you. And now comments from our board members. Councilperson Judy Cheek.
Thank you. First, I want to thank everybody for being here, and the presentation was great. But other than that, I have no comments.
All right, thank you. Councilperson Vicki Daniels.
Well, I would like to thank Executive Director for adding them to the agenda for this month for the CDM Smith. I really enjoyed the presentation. I know I didn't understand everything, but I at least was able to understand more about the different methodologies and what it took to go through that and get some data. And I thought that was perfect timing. I think we needed that. I think the town, the community needed the information also to help understand the time frame, and I appreciated the project schedule. We need to find a pot of gold. And we need to start working on representatives, because we need to have that funding ASAP. And appreciate everybody coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Robert Way.
I just want to echo, thank you for the CDM Smith being here tonight. It was a great presentation. It was great information they provided, especially what has worked for the Pittsburgh community, which is pretty equivalent to about the size that we have here. I also want to echo your comment. Need to stay on our representatives as much as possible, emails, phone calls. Their representatives are reaching out. We're going back and forth. Matter of fact, members of our board are meeting with Senator Everett on Friday at 11 o'clock at City Hall. So he's going to be there, and our board secretary has also put out information that there might be a quorum present. So the community knows. It's been posted on our social media. So if anyone has any comments or questions they might want to talk to the senator about, he'll be at City Hall. So he is going to be there to speak with us and hopefully be able to keep in his ear about funding that we need. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Kenneth McLam.
Thank you, CDM Smith did an excellent job, fantastic. And they were on the money as knowing all the answers to all the questions. So thank you for everybody coming tonight. That's it.
Okay. And Vice Chair, Commissioner Georgiana Kaczynski.
Well, CDM Smith, I missed their first presentation back in August because I wasn't able to attend it. So I was grateful to see it again tonight, which was my first time. I'm grateful to the DEQ for getting that money for PFAS to us. We knew about the money last year. However, it took this long to get it approved and get it moving. I have a question for our finance director. I've seen on the SGWASA website that we have new billing system being installed. And we received one of these letters saying that your new SGWASA account number, you will, even with the new changeover with Tyler Technologies, you will be assigned a new SGWASA account number. I'm concerned about problems with people paying their bill with the old number, getting their water turned off in error. I do not want to see a total uproar of all our, so if you could explain to me, I know that we don't have enough staff that if a check comes in with a wrong account number, we don't have enough staff that can just apply it and try. It's not our job to figure out what it is. We've done this, and the account number, the new account number will be on their bill. So can you assure me and them that, as best you can, there'll always be something. I know that.
See, we should have Mr. Cooch, you should have closed Q&A a long time. Should have put me on the spot at the very end. So we are concerned about the new customer numbers. There's no way around it in the new system, though. It was required. So what we've done is as you've noted, you've got one letter already. So we are doing targeted mailings for certain groups of customers. Those that pay online through their online banking account, they're getting a targeted letter specific to that kind of payment saying go into your online banking account, change your account number after April 20th when you get your new bill. Fortunately, we were hoping to have the account numbers before now so that as customers inquire about it, we could give them a heads up, your new account number is going to be. But the conversion hadn't occurred yet. That's supposed to be tomorrow. So hopefully after tomorrow, we'll start getting those numbers. So the first mailing is the ACH customers that are paying through their online bill pay. We've got another set of customers that are set up with recurring payments in our current portal. We're reaching out to them on a targeted mailing as well so that they get a letter saying you currently pay with recurring payment. After April 20th, you'll need to go into the new customer portal, set up an account, and put in your new account number. So we're doing several targeted mailings. We're also doing a targeted mailing that's supposed to go out later this week or first of next week for any customers who are currently on the e-bill system. So if you currently get electronic bill notices, that's through our old provider, and you'll need after April 20th, your last bill will be e-billed on April 20th. After that, you'll revert back to paper bills until you go in and set up a new portal account and request e-bills. So we're sending out targeted mails to at least 3 groups. We're also including a comprehensive, so Crystal created a 2-page comprehensive Q&A that kind of rolls all of these things into one Q&A, and we're putting that in every bill that goes out, either e-bills or paper bills, in April 20th billing cycle.
So I'm going to say that more than likely our customer service team is going to be very busy for the beginning of this rollout, and possibly if people are trying to call and they can't get through, this is why. It's not that we don't have anybody working, it's just that there's a lot of issues that are going to be happening until we get through this.
Right. This is a very heavy lift. It's going to be a very heavy lift when you're dealing with that many customers, and every customer's account number is changing, every customer's payment channel. So we have done extensive planning for 2 months. We've had numerous meetings. We've met with new product provider numerous times. Crystal's been very good at rolling out as much as she can through social media, websites. If you get inquiries from the customers, please point them to the website. Because this is a moving, it changes every day. There's new things every day.
Right.
And we're trying to update as best we can through the website. Right. One thing that we have a kind of a gap with the old system is we didn't have the ability to do notifications to customers through the software. And so much of the email addresses, the phone numbers that we have in the old database are no longer valid. So this new portal will have the ability for the customer, and that's why we're encouraging more customers to use the new portal. You can update all that information and keep it current if your phone number changes, if you don't have a home phone anymore, if you want to get text versus voice. All of that now will be maintained through the customer portal. And in the future, should we have any kind of software changes, we could do a broadcast through that channel, and we would have a more comprehensive broad coverage. But we are taking as many steps as we can. Can I assure you that there will be no customers complaining that they didn't know? Of course, I can't assure you that.
Right.
But I can tell you that we're taking extensive steps to try to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. And there may be customers that get all 4 mailings, the one in the deal, and they may, through their payment channel, they may get 3 targeted letters. So we're trying to do broad coverage.
Thank you so much. And we have a finance committee meeting on Friday morning. I can't wait. I always enjoy our finance committee meetings. But that's all I have for you, Richard.
Okay.
And I just want to correct one thing. When I talked about filter in home, just to get this straight, I was talking about a reverse osmosis system that filters out PFAS. And my research showed that the one I was looking at was $9,000 for my home. So I'm sure there are cheaper ones out there. That's the one I found. Thank you.
Okay. And as for me, I'd just like to echo everyone else in thanking CDM Smith. I thought they brought us some good information. It's an excellent presentation. We peppered them pretty good with questions, and they withstood they stood up very well, and I certainly appreciate that. Scott, thank you. Thank you for staying on top of this. Thank you for staying on top of all the projects we have going, big and small. Expensive and not so expensive, but we'll continue looking for funding. Say, buddy, can you spare $21 million? Jerry, you got it. Can you make us a loan, buddy? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but thank you everyone for being here tonight. We appreciate you taking time to come. Appreciate you coming and making comments during public comments section. Thank you all. And with that, do we have anything for closed session? We don't have anything. Is there any other business to come before us tonight? Anybody got anything? Well, then,
Motion to adjourn.
all right. That's what I wanted to hear. We have a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second? We have a second. And I don't think there'll be any discussion on the motion, so we'll just go to the vote. All those in favor say bye. Bye. And all those Opposed, say stay. Thank you.